Meeting to order at 6 p.m. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move into a roll call and conflict of interest check. Trustee Nolte.
Here, none.
Trustee Abbott.
Here, none.
Treasurer Metz.
Present, none.
Clerk Stambuelis.
Present, none.
Trustee Sanders.
Here and none.
Trustee Sickinga.
Here and none. Excellent job.
Been working on it. I've been working on it. All right, we'll now move into approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I wanted to request that the minutes be removed from the consent calendar and moved to the action items as action item A.
Just to clarify, you want to remove the entire approval of the minutes or either of the?
Just the public, well, actually, I'm not sure.
Well, there was a public hearing and then there was a Board of Trustees
Yeah.
meeting.
Let's
So
just
there's two
remove,
separate sets.
let's just remove.
The whole thing?
Remove them all, because I can't remember what portion of the minutes might.
Okay, so there's a motion to remove the approval of the minutes from the consent agenda. So we'd be removing consent agenda letter A, and that would become action item D. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move into a vote. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. All right, hearing none, that motion carries. We will move that item. Are there any other items for the approval of the agenda? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved
Second.
as amended.
It's been moved by Nolte, seconded by Metz. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move into a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. All right, the agenda is approved. And we will move on now to our call for public comment on agenda items. Are there any members of the public wishing to address the board this evening? Yeah, just come up to the microphone. Make sure it's on. I don't. We got it.
Hello, is that better?
Great, thank you. It's really for the people that are watching online. It helps amplify for the video, so we make sure we pick it up. And just tell us your name and address, and then.
My name is Wayne Esch. I reside at 7983 Forest in downtown Dexter. I'm here about the conservation easement for the Esch property that's just located a little bit north of here. And I wanted to give you a little bit of background. I don't know if it's of interest to you, but it is to our family. My father started working that property 85 years ago. And eventually he bought it for the family. So my dad loved to farm, and he thought he would build a retirement home there someday, but he never retired from Barton Hills after 68 years. He always wanted to farm, and one of my brothers farmed with him. Unfortunately, that brother passed away last year. So the last few years, he really wasn't able to farm it. I'd asked my dad before he passed away what we should do with this property. And he said, you're going to have to sell it. There's no grandchildren that are interested in farming. I wish there were, but eventually you're going to have to sell it. I had hoped that we could make it into a park, and I contacted Barry Lonning because I knew him from 25 years ago when he did the Divine Preserve there off Zeeb Road in Ann Arbor. Zeven Liberty area. And I talked to him about a park and name it after my parents. And after investigation, that really didn't seem like that was going to work out. But Lonnie came up with the idea of a conservation easement. And I think that's what my parents would have liked. I'm the oldest of 10 children. And my dad first came to Dexter when he was 8 years old. He drove a wagon from Redford, Michigan with horses by himself. His dad gave him directions and said, take the furniture to this house, and it's about a quarter-mile down on Dexter Pinckney Road here. So we've got a lot of family ties and history here, and I'd like to preserve this property for my dad and his legacy. I know that's what my mom and dad would have liked. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to address the board for public comment? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Oh, I want to mention one thing as we go through. We did also receive the final piece of the North Lake fireworks application. You'll notice that in there we were missing the DNR certificate. And so as we had done in the previous year, but we did receive an email today that it is completed. We're just waiting for it to be the final signature and to be sent in to us. So just in case that was a question for anybody. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion to approve it.
Second.
The motion by Nolte, seconded by Abbott. Is there any discussion? Oh, I did it again. We don't have discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. All right, the motion passes. So the consent agenda is approved.
Can I just ask one question, even though, so that means that everybody's okay with the calendar changes for the, okay.
And we'll now move into action items. The first action item is the acceptance of financial transactions. And you'll notice that after previous board feedback, we have combined those two items, the check disbursement and the revenue and expenditure report on the correct page for this meeting packet. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the check disbursement.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move into a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The motion carries. And we'll now move into our FOSP recommendation to purchase the conservation easement known as the Ash North property, or as you all may notice, the largest amount of paperwork in a packet I think we've had in a year or so.
Ever.
I'm going to ask Barry to come on up and we'll give you a few minutes to give us an introduction to this, and then we will move on.
Good evening. So you have a recommendation before you from the Farmland and Open Space Preservation Board to purchase a conservation easement on the Ash North property. This is about 93 acres of land. It's on both sides of Dexter Pinckney Road, just north of North Territorial Road, just up the ways here a little bit. It has good quality agricultural soils. It's currently in hay production. It also has good quality natural features, woods and wetlands on the property, as evidenced by the Huron River Watershed Council report that was in your packet this evening. It has a boundary with Stinchfield Woods on the west and Hudson Mills Metro Park on the east. There's a historic post-Civil War barn on the property, fantastic scenic views from Dexter Pinckney Road. The appraised value for the conservation easement is $1.152 million. We have commitments from federal, state, and county programs covering 90% of that amount. The request or the recommendation before you this evening is for Dexter Township to cover the remaining 10%, which is about $118,000. which is about half of 1 year's worth of millage proceeds. It is also the preferred location for the Border to Border Trail Northwest Extension. Pete Sanderson from County Parks is on his way here, but he said that there was a incident on the freeway that closed it down, so he's stuck in traffic, so he may not get here in time, but I asked Pete to come and speak to that. I attended the County Parks Commission meeting last week at which they made their commitment. And he indicated then that by putting the trail on the Esch property as opposed to down in the floodplain would save somewhere between 1.2 and $1.8 million. It's 600 feet of boardwalk otherwise that they'd be looking at installing there, and it's $2,000 to $3,000 a linear foot for boardwalk through there. So riding it up the hillside a little bit and onto the very east side of this property will save a substantial amount of money. I know that there's been some concern expressed for the loss of commercial land here in Dexter Township, which is limited. But I noticed that there are 50 acres of commercially zoned land right here at the corner. The northwest, northeast, and southwest corners. The southeast corner is also zoned commercial, but there's a residential structures on that, but they are zoned commercial at this point. So just the vacant and underutilized, I would say, commercial land just at this corner totals 50 acres. And of course, there's the 5-acre parcel just down the road at Texter Town Hall Road, which has the abandoned structure that used to be a restaurant, used to be a party store, and is not currently anything at this point. I noted in the master plan survey results a couple of notable things. The preservation of agricultural land was supported either as a high priority or a moderate priority by 89% of those who responded. The preservation of undeveloped land, 92%. Non-motorized trails, 71%. Commercial development for local population, only 10% strongly agreed with that, that need in the community. And there was a question about the number of commercial businesses that, being just right, and 72% said yes to that. So again, 50 acres right here at the corner, another 5 down the road. The Dexter Crossing commercial development on the east side of Dexter, opposite where the Bush's grocery store is. That's a 14-acre area. So that could be duplicated numerous times here, right at the corner, and not need the 50 acres of the Esch property to accomplish that. I also see potential for an agritourism site on this property, a farm market, something of that nature. I think it's the kind of location that would be attractive for that. We'll see where things go once the easement is purchased. It's a great deal on a great property. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Are there any questions for Barry?
I want to add something to what Barry said. So, because Pete's not here, I want to remind the board that we contributed financially to the plan that resulted in those cost estimates that Barry was quoting of Pete's. And I walked the trail because I was one that requested that funding. And this Esch property, we identified it as a preferred route very early on, not just because of the financial implications, but also because it's more eco-friendly, which you guys also know I care about a lot. So if we can't put the trail on the Esch property, then it has to go down into the natural area by the river. So I just wanted to add that since Pete's not here, I think he probably would have said that. So reminded us that we paid for that, that study and that we made a resolution of support for that trail.
Any questions for Barry? All right, we'll let you take, if anything comes up, we know where to find you. So you can, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve this purchase of the Esch property north
I'll
for preservation.
All right, it's been moved by Sanders, seconded by Stambuelli to to approve the FOSS recommendation to purchase the conservation easement for the Esch North property. Is there any discussion?
Can I just ask a quick question on the trail? If the trail comes up, how are people crossing Dexter Pinckney?
There's going to
we
be a
put-
signalized, well, it depends on exactly where the trail goes, but there is
Okay.
going to be the
There'll be a
idea
signal.
was there would be a signalized crossing. Yeah, and
Okay.
that was the idea when we did the plan. And I don't know, it sounds like the Parks Commission has made progress on it, so they may have altered the plan a little. bit, but
Okay.
That was the original.
Okay. Just wondering about the safety of that.
Other discussion?
Thank you for the complete pages.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, thank you to, Wayne.
Yeah.
Ash, for hanging in there. I know you've been working on this for a long time, a very long time, and you've been really patient and there's been a lot of controversy to some degree about it. And I'm so, I'm really hopeful that we'll pass it, and I'm thrilled that you hung in there and didn't decide to do something else with it. Yeah, I can imagine. And you've got a lot of people that you're trying to take care of there.
It's
Yeah.
worse than a Board of Trustees.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's family.
So thank
Uh,
you.
Other discussion? I think I should, I'm gonna address, I am one of the people that Barry was talking about, that has concerns about, commercial property in the township. And I just want to make sure that I say here, well, first of all, let me, I'm gonna vote yes to support this. But I do want to walk through a little bit of my thinking, just so that there's a record that I have said it. My biggest concern is that when we do these types of easements, they're in perpetuity, and that while I don't believe that we will need additional commercial space in Dexter Township now or in 10 years or in 20 years, maybe even 20, I don't know that we don't need that in 30 or 40. And so that was one of my big concerns in reviewing all this. And I will say that, Barry's explanation of the size of the commercial property in Dexter versus what we have available on that corner put me at ease enough to be able to support this for the family and for the ecological reasons, for the trail, all of those pieces. But I did want to make sure that I said here that I was one of those people with reservations. And I do think that we have to be mindful as we move forward with these types of projects, that we understand what we're doing for ever, essentially, that we are making those decisions. I do think that the voters in the township passed the millage for a reason, and they want us to stay without a lot of commercial development. But I do know that also eventually they may need a pharmacy or some other services as population grows, not just here, but around us. So just wanted to make sure that I said that. Like I said, I will be supporting it today, but wanted to clarify that I was one of those people that Barry was talking about with reservations.
Can I add to that? Because I think I was the first person that raised that issue, and I met with Mr. Esch and the FOSS board back when I was a supervisor about this matter. And I asked the planning commission, my feeling was that the commercial zoning at the corner of North Territorial and Dexter Pinckney Road is too large in proportion to what the master plan survey results were. And I asked the planning commission to take up that matter and consider shrinking the size of that commercial zone, which extended all the way from North Territorial Road up to Stinchfield Woods. And I didn't think that that was consistent with what the residents wanted, but the planning commission did declined to shrink the size of that commercially zoned area. And I think that was in part because of the Ash family and the impact that rezoning it would have on the purchase price. And so I don't like that the planning commission made a decision based on a transaction like that, but I am supportive of this proposal because I think it removes a reasonable objection to right sizing that commercial zone in the master plan. Because now we have the state, the feds and local paying the cost essentially of that higher cost of that commercial land, and kind of solving a problem for us. And now if it can go back to the planning commission with that objection removed, then maybe we could amend the plan, the master plan map to show what I think is a more reasonably sized commercial zone for Dexter Township.
Well, I would like to speak to that planning commission meeting you're referring to, because I was on that committee. We chose not to change the designation from commercial property to agriculture, even though he's using it for agriculture, is because we were told by the consultant that a farmer's property is his 401k. And therefore, after he said that to us, then 10 minutes later, he's telling us or advising us that we should change that from commercial property to agriculture. So that's why we didn't do it. I'm not ever going to vote to take money from another family by changing the designation of their property just so it fits into what a committee or any committee wants.
Well, it should be representing that the master planning maps should represent the desire of the community for future land use. And I don't want to relitigate that decision. My feeling was that the community doesn't want a commercial area as large as that. And now we have an opportunity to have the planning commission discuss what would be an appropriate size for a commercial zone.
And that's what the beauty is of the open space.
Yeah, that's
is-
why
is to
this,
preserve it. We just didn't want to reduce the value of his property because he even came and spoke at that public hearing and explained that that property was bought at commercial rates.
yeah. Right.
Any additional discussion? Other board members?
I guess just a comment. So I understand the possible want in the future for commercial developments, but the community overwhelmingly approved a land preservation millage. We already have two sub-cities, Dexter and Chelsea, very close in proximity. One of them has a hospital, the other town both have doctors' offices, pharmacies, grocery stores, and we also have Ann Arbor, Jackson, and Brighton surrounding. And I just want to end by saying this makes Dexter Township unique. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful location to be. And people really value the open space and the nature. So thank you. And I also will be a yes.
I have one more thought too, and it's just another thank you. So I guess I'm just full of gratitude. Oh, just full of gratitude tonight for Barry. Thank you for pulling together all this money to purchase this, to allow us to purchase, to make it reasonable and doable for us to purchase it. Amazing. So thank you for hanging in there too.
Any further discussion? I do want to mention as well that we have two, as part of your supplemental packets, there were two notes from other FOSS board members that are included here for you, encouraging the board to adopt the recommendation. And I just wanted to highlight those, that they were on the table. Hearing no further discussion, we'll move into a vote. Since this is a financial decision, we'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Nolte,
Yes.
Trustee Abbott,
Yes.
Treasurer Metz,
Yes.
Clerk Stambueli,
Absolutely, yes.
Trustee Sanders.
Yes.
Trustee Sakinga.
Yes.
Sakinga, there we go. Supervisor Scott, yes. And that is all yeses. The motion carries. We'll move into our next. I know, I was waiting. Fletcher, you were there. All right, we'll move into action item C. That's the resolution in support of immigrants in our community. Trustees,
The crowd.
trustee Sikkiga.
I just, I know there's been a lot in the news about immigrants, lately and about the new crackdowns and immigrants being deported and so on. And I know that some in our own community and some in my own family are affected by some of that and feeling very unsettled and perhaps less welcome. And so I thought one thing we might be able to do that would make our voices a little bit louder would be to pass a resolution of about being a welcoming community and encouraging our state legislator to vote in ways that are friendly to immigrants. And thinking that this might, number one, just help any immigrants in our community feel more comfortable and feel welcome. And then number two, give a little bit more weight to our voices with our elected representatives. And I said I was a little nervous about putting this in here, but I did. My grandmother was a blueberry farmer, and I have picked blueberries with immigrant workers who were coming back kind of year after year to do that work. And I know that work is very backbreaking. I couldn't pick fast enough to make minimum wage. And I just don't know what my grandmother would do without those, because Americans don't want those jobs. And so I thought, well, this is not really going to help farmers. And we do have farms in our community. And so I thought this is not going to help the farmers in our community to the extent that they're using immigrant workers to bring in the crops. So anyway, so I wanted it to go as a decision this month instead of a discussion because this is an immigrants' rights celebratory month. But I'm also open to the idea. We usually do discuss something first before we approve it. So if anybody's not comfortable with that, I totally understand that. But anyway.
Is there a motion?
I'd like to discuss it. So we need a motion in order to discuss it.
Typically, we would do the motion first and then have discussion.
Okay, so I have some discussion about it.
So would you like to make the motion? Or no?
I think no, yet,
Okay.
until we discuss it, yeah.
Thought we had to have a motion to be able to.
That's what I
discuss it.
thought too. That's what she's.
I'll make the motion.
So trustee Nolte, you're moving to adopt resolution 25-698.
Oh, I was looking for that number. There it is. Yes. 25698.
25-698.
And I'll second
Is there? Okay.
since I'm putting it out there.
All right, so it's been properly moved and seconded. Now we'll open discussion, trustees. Trustee Sikkiga.
Yeah.
Trustee Sanders.
So my thoughts are, first of all, thank you, Karen, for introducing this. I think it's really important that we do it. And, you know, we did our community conversation on immigration last Tuesday, and we really want to have another one. I think a lot of questions and concerns and discussion came out of that. We started a little bit, the start time was a little bit off. And so I would have loved to have more time for the community talk, but I would say 25, 30 people came. And, you know, it's clear from what's going on in our country and our nation that this is just a big, important issue that affects everyone. And we do have not only my family is an example, but we do have people who are seriously affected by what's going on with federal immigration enforcement in particular. So I just want to say that in the original, as we've been looking at this resolution, there was a part of it that's been taken out, language that support that supports Washtenaw County and other entities to resist or to, I guess resist is the best word. I don't think that's the language that was in there, but you know, Washtenaw County has immigration and federal immigration has subpoenaed Washtenaw County's records. Not only their W-9s of their employees, but also the data and records that's associated with the Washtenaw photo ID project, which was developed 10 years ago to allow for people to get a photo ID who oftentimes can't get a state ID or a driver's license. And it's not just immigrants that are affected by that, but it's homeless folks who are struggling, it's people who are vulnerable, elder African Americans who were born in Jim Crow South. Many of them don't have a photo ID because they didn't have a birth certificate in order to get the state and driver's license or state ID. So, you know, immigration has come after that data, even though and subpoenaed it. And so far, our Washtenaw County commissioners have been unanimously standing against producing that data because it really puts people at risk. It's a way of entrapping people and for the purposes of deportation and just tearing families up. So originally there was language in here that gave it a little bit more oomph. Is that the language?
Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you. And I really think we should put it in. I'll read the language, but also I checked, I know that this is, you know, we've been talking about it, but I also, I talked to Jane Pacheco today, who is the mayor of Chelsea, and Chelsea just passed an ordinance. This is a resolution, but they passed an ordinance it was basically a messaging ordinance that makes sure that that city employees don't ask about immigration status, and that includes their police. So that's an ordinance is a document that has a lot more teeth, for example, than a resolution. And she talked with their attorney and said that a resolution is not legally binding. So I think that one of the concerns about putting language in it that really sets our intention to support Washtenaw County in resisting turning over this information is the concern that, you know, we could be possibly sued, or that it might, you know, be create a legal problem, when actually it looks like that's not a risk, that it's likely not a risk that it would create a legal problem, but it would set our intention. It would confirm that we want to support our county commissioners and their unanimous decision to not turn over this information. And they are in a legal battle about it.
Will you
Okay,
read
so I
that?
will read it. Yeah, now that I've said my little piece. All right, the Township Board calls upon our fellow local government entities, especially counties, to refrain from actively assisting ICE programs like Secure Communities, which allows for sharing of biometric information with federal immigration databases. And we stand with Washtenaw County in its refusal to provide such information. The piece about Secure Communities is a little confusing because everybody now in the entire United States is involved in Secure Communities. Secure Communities is a program where if you are arrested, for example, and taken into the jail and you get your fingerprints taken, it is immediately sent through a database. So I'm not sure Secure Communities is the right language, but definitely, so we can't, in other words, Washtenaw County really can't refrain from that because automatically anyone that is arrested, that those fingerprints go through that that operational database, and we don't have a choice about that anymore. But we do have a choice about turning over data that was never intended to be revealed, people's names and addresses that was never intended to be revealed to immigration enforcement for the, purposes of an inhumane, yeah, I'm losing my, inhumane efforts to detain and deport people that have been here for many, many years working, farm workers, restaurant workers, hotel workers, everybody who's keeping our cleaning your houses and fixing your roofs and, everybody who's keeping our economy going. So.
Thank you. Sorry, I just want to clarify. Part of the reason when we say it was removed, it was actually a suggested removal by our township attorney. So I appreciate that the city's doesn't feel like it's a legal issue. Our attorney had a different opinion, that the wording there specifically naming not participating with ICE is a potential issue. I think the guidance that we got was that it would be a policy decision by this board if we included that, knowing that while it is not a current legal issue based on the current guidance in state, that there's the possibility with any of the executive orders or the things moving through Congress, that language could set off flags specifically for federal pass-through dollars. So I just want to make sure that we make that clarification that that is the reason it was removed. It was removed as a legal flag. Not saying that we should or should not support it, just that portion specifically is a policy decision that this board needs to make with full understanding of what the implications of that could be.
And I just want to say, because I wrote this resolution and I'm the sponsor. I just felt like, I wrote that, what Laura just read, I wrote and support and believe. But I did not want it to be in a published packet, knowing that our attorney had flagged it without coming to the board first and the board making a policy decision. I didn't want to have anything in any public information about us that might jeopardize our FOSP funding prospects or whatever. I think FOSP is realistically the thing that we're most likely to get funding for. There are some pieces of legislation that are at the state level right now that are proposed to restrict immigrant rights. And in my first version, I had listed those, but the new version is just more generic and kind of leaves it. And I think this is right. It leaves it to the state, to the elected officials to understand what they're voting for, because, new bills might get approved or whatever. So I did not want to commit this board to something that I don't have confidence that the federal administration is carefully reviewing things and thinking about niceties and all that kind of stuff. So if they're scouring local government minutes and resolutions and looking for excuses to label liberal leaning jurisdictions as sanctuaries or whatever, and therefore withholding funding, I didn't want to cause that to happen. And then, if this board didn't want that in there. So I took it out, not based on not based on my personal beliefs, but because I didn't want anything controversial in there without
Right.
a policy decision by the board.
I think the discussion about it is
Yeah.
important. Yeah. It sets our intention, right? And yeah, maybe I'm not sure what federal funding would be at risk by us supporting Washtenaw County in their commitment.
Yeah, could be none, could be
Could be
some.
none, could be some.
Could be FOSS, could be sewer federal funding. Are you, do you promote us? Are you looking for us to also have an ordinance on this or just strictly a resolution?
I think, right, I haven't really thought beyond the resolution.
Okay.
Right now, I feel like we're kind of unfold, this picture is unfolding now. What do you think?
This is my, so,
Yeah.
so, and again, I made the decision to do a resolution and not an ordinance. And the
Okay.
reason I made that decision is because unlike the city of Chelsea, we ourselves don't have many operations
Right.
So it's
that, that are relevant. So an ordinance like they have in Chelsea, they're saying to the police, to their staff, when these things come up, this is how we want you to behave and this is how we want you to answer and all that. Well, we just don't have, we just really have almost none of that. So I was trying to think, well, what can we do that would
Support.
most
Right.
influence what's happening? And I thought that making a plea to legislators who actually do have some control over these things was more impactful than an ordinance over our tiny operation that really has very little to do with, because if you look at the census data, we don't have a very diverse population in Dexter Township.
No.
So there aren't very many of our residents. There are a few.
But we are a farming community.
Right.
Where people
Yeah.
can be targeted. We do have police representation.
But we
have a
can't-
Member of that.
Well,
board.
But we can't tell the sheriff what to do.
But
because
this
we-
helps us support our sheriff, who has taken a strong stand.
Right.
So this would position us to support our police force, which is our sheriff, who's taken a very strong stand and could take some hits
Mhm.
for this stance. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I felt the resolution was more impactful for
Mhm.
for what our operation is.
Yeah, I agree with that. And
Fair enough.
I do, but I do think we should include this language. So it's clear that we're supporting our county.
The only question I had about it, since we've, was if we want to make it more generic, like, so that it doesn't,
I think we should just take out secure communities, because we don't have a choice about that. So,
but instead of saying ICE programs, maybe from actively assisting any program which allows for sharing of biometric information.
Yeah.
And we stand.
Great, because you don't know what's
because-
coming down the road.
what about I would say federal. I think we need to be, we need to be specific about immigration, federal immigration.
Well, what if we don't say ICE, which so we've said.
That's what
any-
I had worked on this language and used federal enforcement efforts or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Other discussion?
Bring that up.
Yeah, other,
Well, we just voted to purchase this, the Ash property, the easement, and 29% of that $1 million price tag came from the federal government. So I just want us trustees who are the fiduciaries for this township to just remember to keep that into consideration.
Unfortunately, I think that
Yeah.
funding is probably going to go away anyway, because, that's just my pessimistic view, but they're cutting
Everything.
so many grants, and anything that has positive environmental impact is targeted right now. And so, but sewer, I don't know, I did hear that a major grant for a sewer got withdrawn when it was in process, so.
Who, ours?
Not,
Oh.
no, not ours. It was one, it's one in Ohio or
Oh,
something,
yeah.
actually
It's been pulled.
it was pulled.
Yeah.
It was actually, it was clawed
It
back.
was
which-
awarded in.
It was awarded, ground was broken,
Yeah.
and then they clawed it back and it was sewer funding
Right.
Can you
because
please-
of, like, they clawed it back because of what?
because of Doge. It was part of the
Oh,
Doge
just-
cuts.
Okay.
I have a question. So can a resolution be passed and then if we want to add that verbiage later, we amend it, bring it back to the forefront and amend it? Or,
Again, like the animal ordinance, I'm not sure why we would do that.
okay.
Why we wouldn't just get it right the first time. But Alicia, I hear you. I understand the concern, but it just feels so fear-based to me for us to
Mhm.
not take a stand to support the county commissioners on this. It just feels like we're scared, right, about federal funding and everything. And I do understand that, but I just can't make a decision out of that. We have to make decisions, I believe, out of what we know to be right for everyone in our county.
I happen to agree with you on that. I think I think we need to move through the fear, and I also think we have to understand that over 50% of our residents are on the Democratic side, they're on the blue side. And I think that is a definite consideration to take for the township.
Well, and I just want to say red or blue, there are Republicans that
Yep.
are disgusted by what is happening because it was not what was promised.
Right.
What was promised was that serious criminals, undocumented criminals would be removed from the country. That's not what's happening.
Right.
Innocent people who are not criminals, who have been here for a long time, are being swept up so that they can meet quotas for detainment and deportation. People are being criminalized, coming across a border because your family is here, is being, is now a reentry. People are being criminalized for the purposes of deportation. So
Well-
it's just not
Right.
what was said was going to happen. And I know a number of Republicans that are very concerned about it.
Can I just say, that's why I talked about my grandmother, who was very, very bright red. I mean, she's not around anymore. She's passed away, but I just know she wouldn't be able to run the farm. She wouldn't be able to bring in the harvest without the migrant workers. And she's by no means a Democrat.
And I just want to say that I've heard from Republican constituents in our township that are concerned.
Other discussion?
I am absolutely all for human rights, human dignity. I am in absolute support of this document, first and foremost. But I mean, I just want to put it out there due to recent events, especially in Minnesota. I mean, that concerns me, and I did run for local office. I don't work in the police department. I don't work with our county commissioners, but I am a clerk. Okay, so that's very concerning, number one. Secondly, I've been advocating for a long time for security, which we have next to none. And it does concern me. I mean, there, over 50% of our community absolutely would agree with all of this, plus the additional verbiage. I do too. But I mean, right now, anyone can come in this building and the first face they see is our office assistant, our office manager, or myself. And we need to take into consideration the safety of the individuals in this office as well. And I will let you know, not having any type of protection on this big giant, you can hop over the counter, we can lock the door and think we feel safe and secure, not so much. And, especially running the school elections, as well as Livingston County, I had to sign for one of their school elections. Going to other municipalities, I mean, they have taken those measures of security. So I would like to bring that, to the Board of Trustees as well, that it's not at all for just myself, but I do care about my well-being as well. I mean, so to enact this, I really feel that the board needs to take security seriously here as well for our staff and anyone coming into this building.
I think they're two different issues because political violence could happen from any
Sure.
kind of
absolutely.
issue. However, I hear you, Michelle, and I understand the fear and I have felt it myself. I felt it when we were going to do the conversation. I felt it when this happened, this terrible thing happened in Minnesota, so I hear you. And I think it's separate from this, but
Agreed. I think it is a separate issue and maybe we need to amend the agenda again and add it as another discussion item. And
Well, maybe not tonight. but
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
or-
not
yeah.
tonight.
Yeah,
or
just
just sit
put
down.
it, put it as a
Yeah,
future
yeah,
agenda.
address political violence,
Yeah.
which is what it is and what's happening.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Other discussion?
So have we kind of come to the terms of taking out the one, I forget the
Well,
actual verbiage
let's,
of-
this is the new, let's recommend a new verb addition.
So right now, just to clarify where we're at, we had a motion for the actual resolution, which does not include the extra section that Laura read. So if we,
So I should.
Karen
We
wrote
could-
it, but we're,
But I should
But we took it
rescind
out.
my motion.
Yep.
And then we could make a new
Yeah.
motion.
or we can amend. Yeah,
Amend it.
there's, I mean, there's different options that if that's the,
so this
what
is
the
the
board would like to do.
recommended new language. The township board calls upon our fellow local government entities, especially counties, to refrain from actively assisting federal enforcement efforts that allow for sharing of biometric information with federal immigration databases. And we stand with Washtenaw County in its refusal to provide such information. I think that's lovely
you
and,
removed
and
the
really
hot
sets our intention.
Mhm.
What?
I think they
Yeah.
removed some hot buttons, some flag words that.
I think so too.
Yeah, we took out ICE and we're not talking about secure communities because we don't have a
Right.
choice.
Right.
Oh, that's, I like that.
Do you want me to change my
How do we-
motion?
Well, Lonnie, what do you think? I'm just curious about what you think, because you were the one who was conversing with. Are you comfortable?
I mean, I think as long as we have had the discussion and the board understands I mean, I think, as long as the board, everyone understands the implications. I will say, I don't know that the line, removing the line actively assisting ICE programs it changes it changes to probably not be as hot of an issue, but the intent. So I'm just going to read what Sarah sent to us, just so everyone has that information and we can make that determination. So, I don't think there is anything unlawful about, this was paragraph 4, just so everyone knows. However, the risk as I see it is the township is asking local governments to refrain from actively assisting ICE programs. The proposed bill, note this is not a law yet, it's proposed, may impact the township if the township is deemed a sanctuary jurisdiction, which is defined as, and she says she's paraphrased it, any government that has in effect an ordinance, policy, or practice that restricts any governmental entity from exchanging information with the federal government or other state and local government about citizen or immigration status or complying with a lawful request by Homeland Security, etc. Calling on the other jurisdictions does not restrict or prohibit them from assisting ICE. Rather, it asks or encourages them to do so, which would make them a sanctuary jurisdiction. So while it may not technically disqualify the township, those awarding federal grant funds are not likely to engage in a complex legal analysis to determine this. So I won't read the email in its entirety, but that's the part about impact.
But we should take it out, and then have it as.
Now, again, I don't think, Karen, you asked where I'm struggling is that in the same way that all of you have said, I 1000% agree, personally. And, frankly, have been at all the rallies and the events and to speak out as much as I personally can. I do, to Alicia's point earlier, there is a concern for me that, that we end up restricting funds or, that there's some federal impact, that could be problematic down the road. But again, I personally fully agree with the sentiment. So I feel like I am not in a, if the board, if the consensus is that we're putting it in, I 100% support that. And if the consensus is we're leaving it out, I 100% would support that as well. I think we have to make that decision as the township board as to what we're comfortable with. And knowing all of those different perspectives.
I just want to say that I understand what you're saying, Lonnie, but I don't necessarily think that we're being personal. I think we're watching out for our community. And I don't think that's personal. We know people who, handing over their names and addresses to immigration will devastate their families. And I mean, I might personally think that, what ICE is doing is disgusting, but I'm more concerned on a political, communal level about what it says about us and what's going on in our world and what we're allowing to have happen, We can't allow it. Doesn't feel personal to me. It feels like, are you kidding me? We can't allow it. But that's me.
Well,
But it's not personal.
No, but I hear you, Laura, but where I'm struggling is to the point that we talked about earlier, is this being a resolution versus an ordinance. We aren't making that decision. If the question before us tonight was, are we going to decide to hand over things that I know would hurt people in our community? My answer would be vehemently no.
Yeah. But
That's an easier, that to me is almost an easier answer than
the county
that-
commissioners need our support not to do it. They need the whole county and our township support.
And I guess my question is that is the resolution, is that really, I question that, I guess is what I would say. I think the county is making that choice and we are continuously telling them that we support them. And if we need the resolution to do that, and maybe you all are telling me that makes that more firm, that's fine. I mean, I think that's fine. And again, I feel like I'm being put in a position where I'm trying to defend either not doing it or doing it. And I'm not saying that. That is my thought process around all of this is we have to take into effect all of those things before a decision is made. And as long as we are all conscious going into that decision that, we know exactly what we're deciding and doing that, all of us feeling like we completely understand that, then that's all that I want to make sure we get out of the discussion. Yeah.
And I'm just playing devil's advocate here. But the county commissioners are already in a legal battle to not disclose that. They know they have all of our support. And so I guess what I would like to know is, how does this actually move that needle?
I'm not sure they know that. How do they know that they have all of our support? I mean, I just think it's in writing that they have our support. That it's a document that says you have our support and hopefully unanimously, and Dexter Township is with you, Jason, and other county commissioners.
Yeah, and I have to say, I don't know whether, I mean, I read a whole bunch of these, not that there were very many, but there were others,
Yeah.
in other states and whatever, not very many right now. I think we would be kind of cutting edge to do this, but there were some from other townships across the country about other matters, and I read them all, and you know how I am, so like I did a bunch of benchmark stuff and I looked at a bunch of ordinances and I thought about what they all said and what they were all doing. And I thought about what we do, and I just thought, it was just a thought exercise, that this might be the most impactful, but there's no fact about that. It's just a judgment that I made and put in front of you, you know, so it's just an idea kind of, and you guys might not agree that this is the most impactful thing that we could do. But I felt like we should do something that says, hey, we don't like what's happening. We think it's going to be damaging to our residents and to farmers in our community and farmers in our state. You know,
If we don't do it, what are we worried about? If we say no, let's not do this, what is our true concern? Just the finances? Is it the federal loans that we're worried about?
Why
The
we would be
grants?
afraid to do it is.
Is
we
that the
wouldn't get
reason
money.
why? Because
It
if that's
sounds
the
like it.
case, we're probably on a 3 or 4 year hiatus. And
What do you mean by that?
well, somebody will be leaving office at some time, and I gotta believe the country is changing and we're on a little
Well,
edge, and it can change. I mean,
that's why making decisions out of fear of
Ex-
losing funding bothers me.
That-
One
yeah.
of the reasons, but I mean,
Yeah,
it just
so-
bothers me anyway.
yeah, I don't think we can be afraid of losing funding, really. And if we can't buy another 100 acres of land in the next year. Sorry, you know, to me, it seems like one of those principles, you gotta live and die by your principles at some time. And this just seems like a stance that I'm willing to take.
To take it.
With
this
the-
year
with
or
the addendum.
addition? Okay.
Mhm.
What do you, we haven't heard from
Yeah,
treasurer
we're-
sitting
we're
here
at-
all nice and quiet.
I'm honestly just taking everything in that everyone is saying. The original version of it, I was in support of. And then, you know, the addition, you know, I think, trustee Nolte said, you know, you took out some hot buttons. You know, with the rewording, you know, I understand that people just said, you know, we can't worry about a lack of funding, but if the funding for the Ash property got clawed back, the township wouldn't be able to swing this. You know, there are certain things that we want to accomplish, you know, outside of this that could potentially be impacted. And I know that it's, you know, that's what I just said is completely out of fear of that happening. I get it. But at the same time, as much as I don't like saying it, the fear is real. You know, to see, you know, Mr. Esch here telling us his family story and, you know, everything that he said about it and seeing us vote yes. And I immediately see him letting people know, you know, like, hey, it passed. And then if we did something that impacted that, and then later on, it's like, well, that money got pulled back and we can't swing all of this.
But
That would hurt too, I think.
is it us withdrawing that funding? I don't think it's the township withdrawing our intent. That's the federal government withdrawing the intent. And I feel that we have to take a stand in support of our county government and I don't think the county commissioners know Dexter Township is supportive. I don't think we've issued any, other than going to the rallies, if they happen to see one of us, but it's not formally ever been supported. So I'm with that, but I feel like we need to push it upwards to say, we support this. This is.
I mean, clawbacks are very, very rare.
Yeah.
So I think the risk that it would affect the Ash property is pretty minuscule. I know there have been a few clawbacks, but I think more realistically, it would be future unknown funding. And that's at risk you know, my feeling is that
It's at
funding,
risk.
I mean, if anybody knows about what's happening in universities or whatever, you know that the grants are just drying up now. So I would hate to say, oh, we don't want to do this because we might not get grants and then have all the grants go away anyway. And then we would have,
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then it's like a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And then the fact that we voted on this Ash property tonight and we love, you know, we're celebrating that, and now we're talking about this. I mean, I think that just like makes it even worse, you know, it's
Yeah,
like,
I
oh my
totally-
gosh, you know, we don't want to mess with the ashes, right? And I don't think that's gonna happen. I just feel like we can't make decisions based on like these more extreme fears, but even, and I'm not trying to, I hear you, Brad. I'm not trying to be in any way minimizing of the fear. I know that it's scary. I just feel like we need to like feel the fear and do it anyway. And
Is there anybody, I'm going to move us along. Is there anybody who has anything new that they would like to share in discussion?
I don't have anything new, but again, I am not concerned about the funding. I mean, at this present time on the FOSS board,
Did you say
they're not
you are
accepting
not?
applications for
Yeah.
federal funding. So, but fears and concerns are very real to me, and it's not even just me. I have a family as well, and I work here, and it's safety concerns as well as, again, I'm a clerk, election concerns, election integrity. I get it actually more often than you guys probably realize. And I have so many people that come up to me from more or less a Republican side, a Republican base, and, oh, we know Dexter Township elections are secured. And that makes me very uncomfortable. Well, first off, I'm absolutely they are, but they are everywhere. So again, I just want to leave that as my last line, I guess, but security and safety is very important to me, and with this ending paragraph, I don't want to be a target. And in all honesty, we've just saw it over the weekend. So it is a reality. It's not take fear by the horns and let's just go. I mean, you know, things in our world are unfortunately occurring, and that's it.
Anyone else? New comments? I'm going to move us towards. So the motion on the table is the resolution as it stands. Are there any amendments to that motion?
yes,
It was moved by trustee Nolte and seconded by trustee Sickinga.
I'd like to alter my motion to pass the resolution 25-698, including the adjusted paragraph as read prior. I don't have that wording.
Yeah, can you read it again? Just so.
The Township Board calls upon our fellow local government entities, especially counties, to refrain from actively assisting federal enforcement efforts that allow for sharing of biometric information with federal immigration databases, and we stand with Washtenaw County in its refusal to provide such information.
Okay, so the motion has been amended by trustee Nolte. Trustee Sickinga, do you accept that amendment?
Yes, I accept that amendment.
Okay, so the new motion is to adopt resolution 25-698 with the included language that was just read. Any final discussion?
I just want to say that the discussion we had here, I feel was very well-rounded. And it shows our residents that we gave this very thoughtful consideration. So whether it passes or it doesn't, I just want to commend everyone here for having some input, asking questions, and working on things together.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move into a vote. Since it is a resolution, we will do a roll call vote. Trustee Sickinga.
Yes.
Trustee Sanders.
yes.
Trustee Nolte.
Yes.
Trustee Abbott.
Yes.
Clerk Metz.
No. Treasurer.
Treasurer Metz. Wow, I even looked this way. Yes. Clerk Stam-Willies.
Yes.
Supervisor Scott, yes. The resolution is adopted. Moving on in our action items to letter D, was our amended approval of the minutes from our previous Board of Trustees meeting and the previous special meeting. What was it? Public hearing. There we go. Missing all my words tonight.
Yes, so I was gonna request that the board discussion at the bottom of page 8 or page 3 of 4 in the public hearing be delete, just say questions asked during public comment are answered, period, and then delete points 1 through 13 that are the questions and the answers. And the reason for that is,
Show us what page we're on, I'm sorry.
It's back at the
Page eight.
front. Yeah, page
Like the
8.
very beginning. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, okay.
and the reason I want to do that is because we're preparing carefully fact-checked public information about single hauler. It's a little bit of, I don't want to say it's a moving target, but we're clarifying components of the bid and components of the contract. And I'm concerned that the Q&A, a moving target, gets codified, put on the website, and then it's not right anymore. I would rather just point people for Q&A to the curated information instead of having it embedded in minutes. Because I know right now that
This
some of
is
this
not
is
it.
not gonna be, is not gonna be the final.
I don't think there's really a problem leaving the questions. It's the answers.
I mean, we could leave
Like,
the questions.
We
I
can
thought
leave
about-
the questions.
I mean, I thought about that,
To say we
But we-
hear you.
but, okay, if you want to.
Do you know
don't-
what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I like the questions. I like all the questions that the residents give because it brings up
I mean, it
things,
would be
but the
great.
answers are not,
It would be great if we
accurate.
could refer people to the township website
yeah.
in the minutes, but I don't think we can. Well, we did say in the public meeting that there would be.
There's just answers here that aren't
Yeah.
resolved.
Yeah.
They're not true yet.
Yeah.
Because I have a way of putting in brackets, it was not accessible by the board.
Oh, you can do that?
Do that. But that means that I'm putting it in there, it's not board, but once you pass the minutes, you approve.
Oh,
Mm.
okay. So I would then request that the minutes be updated to put into brackets a reference to the Webster Township website for answers, for the up-to-date
To the
answers to
Webster
these
Township?
questions. To the Dexter Township website for up-to-date answers to these questions.
That still isn't real information though, to me. It's like,
Karen, we can't, these aren't right. So
I know, I'm saying they shouldn't go in.
Hold on though. We had a motion. Is there a second for the motion?
My motion is to approve the minutes minus to terminate, to delete everything from questions asked during public comments or answered. I wanted to delete everything.
Okay, you want everything from the bottom of page 3 and midway through 4.
Yeah,
I can-
I want questions 1 through 13 deleted.
I can second that motion.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to delete from page 8, numbers 1 through, and on page 9 through 13. So the remaining section would just say board discussion, questions asked during public comments are answered.
And then in brackets, refer to Dexter Township website for FAQs.
Current status.
Is that, wait, is that part of the motion
I think it.
or the
would be-
update?
Yeah, I think that would be part of the
We don't
motion.
have
And were you
FAQ.
seconding?
No, because we don't have an FAQ yet. They can refer to the Dexter Township.
Hold
just for-
on.
Oh, sorry.
We're getting too far. Is the motion to include the bracket?
Let's just forget it because I don't think it matters. I think we're overthinking it. Can we just delete it and just leave it? Okay.
So the motion is just to delete numbers
Points 1 through 13.
1 through 13.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was seconded.
Yes.
Now we can move into discussion. Is there discussion about the change?
I'm sorry, but maybe I'm just tired, but I don't understand the reasoning yet.
Because the answers are wrong.
Oh,
We're still negotiating.
Yeah,
to take
yeah, yeah.
We're,
because
we're
it-
still
Yeah.
doing this with the hauler, trying to come to a
We don't
contract.
have the
so-
answers yet.
Correct.
All right.
and we don't want to publish
These
misinformation.
are the answers that are on the video.
That may be-
That is not true, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
There are some answers in here that were not what we said. So, and I didn't want to get into the details of that.
S-
See, so for example, it says, Janice, as we said, Theo Agramont, Washtenaw County Director of Public Works, manages the special assessment districts, and it would be his decision. We never said that.
It's not his decision.
So it is not totally consistent with what was said in the public meeting. And I don't think, we don't need to get into the details, but
Yeah.
there are other instances where it's not, where we did not say these things that are quoted in the minutes. Exactly, yeah.
That's the only, I mean, I'm fine with that if we feel like the easiest way is to delete these. To me, this is the official record of the meeting, and I would actually feel better, I think, if we postponed this and came back next month with the official changes from the answers that were given with an exact, because this was very intentionally a public hearing. This was not just our regular meeting. And so I think to show only public comment and then not the fact that we had the discussion isn't a real reflection of what the meeting was. I mean, again, we can do it either way if that's the will of the board. I feel like that many of the answers, maybe not all of them, were the answers that we gave, and they were accurate at the time that we gave them to the public.
Do we want to say these were the answers as of a certain date?
I would think if anyone had questions
Oh,
and
I
we're,
have a couple, if we're gonna leave it in, then I have other correction. I mean, I can go through and correct everything right now in real time. Personally, I don't agree with you, Lonnie. I don't think anybody's gonna be looking at this and thinking, oh, they didn't hear me because they didn't list out the question, the Q.
If anything,
I just don't.
I agree, but I don't think anyone's going to go back to them and say, oh my gosh, that's not what they said about Theo Agramont either.
Oh.
I'm not so sure.
I'm not sure about that, one, especially the Theo one. I'm all for leaving if you question that, leave the questions in, but take the answers out.
How about we
Um,
just go ahead and clarify the questions and we bring the meeting minutes to next board meeting and approve them?
So we can,
So
well,
A special meeting and they should be in historical documentation.
so we'll,
Might not have the answer then. You're talking about July.
I think the point that I'm trying to make, and I think that is the same point that the clerk is trying to make, is that the minutes should still reflect what we said then. If the answer changes between now and July,
Then
I-
we
You
walk through
should,
the
you should
13
talk to Sarah about that because Sarah has advised me multiple times to minimize the minutes. Because, so what's in the minutes becomes a legal document and it can become evidence in court, and the less detail is better. And I think for something like this, I would argue that it's even more important because this is going to be a contract, a legal document. There's a lot of do we really want to commit? I mean, I think number one, we're overthinking it. And number two, there's nothing to be gained by going through and cleaning this up. I think we should just eliminate the questions and approve it and be done with it.
okay. Well, there's a motion on the floor. Is there any additional discussion? So the motion is to just delete 1 through 13 on pages 8 and 9. I know that we have differences of opinion on it, so I'm just going to do a roll call vote. Trustee Sickinga,
Yes.
Trustee Sanders,
No, I don't know. Can you come back? I don't know. Can I abstain?
I'll come back to you. Clerk Stambueli.
Feel like I understand it, the reasoning.
I think they need to be cleaned up.
Then,
So
okay, so the question is, if we're removing this or not? So a yes vote means we're removing it, a no vote means we're not. This is not the final adoption.
But we had a special meeting. I think the information needs to be in there properly. And if we need to clean them up, simplify them.
So it's
Okay,
no,
but yeah,
No.
so it's, okay. All right.
Then I-
Trustee Sickinga was a yes.
I'm
Clerk
gonna-
Stamuelis was a no.
I'm gonna
Trustee
say no.
Sanders.
I'm gonna say no.
Trustee Sanders is a no. Trustee Nolte.
Yes.
Trustee Abbott.
No.
Treasurer Metz.
No.
Supervisor Scott, no. All right. Now,
Easy for you to say.
so now we have, now we're back to the agenda. Is there a motion for the approval of the minutes for the public hearing?
No,
No.
No,
Wait,
as
no.
amended.
Okay.
we just made a decision to put that off till next month.
Well, we haven't officially put it off till next month and it's an agenda item. So I'll
Oh.
entertain a motion to postpone until next month,
We have to-
the approval of
Gets approved
the
next
special
month.
meeting. Is there a motion?
Sure. I just know it's more work, but.
Trustee Nolte, is there a second?
Yes, second.
Seconded by Clerk Stamuelis. Is there any discussion?
There was just a lot of work put into single hauler. It's a public meeting. It's,
We know.
it's a good thing to have that documentation for the community.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. All right, the motion carries. The item is postponed till next month. Next item is approval of the minutes from our regular board meeting.
Just ask one question. If we're cleaning up these answers and the determination isn't made, or we don't have an answer to that question at the time we're cleaning it up,
We'll add brackets to everything
Okay.
that says this information is
Yes.
subject to change.
yes.
There.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of the Dexter Township Board from Tuesday, May 20th?
So moved.
Moved by Abbott. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Sanders. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move into a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say nay. The ayes and nays have gotten much weaker after this discussion, I have to say. It's very, all right, the motion carries. So those minutes are approved. We'll now move into discussion items. I do want to mention as well, and this is my fault for not catching this earlier. The creation of a waterways committee has been talked about a lot, I think internally. This is actually our first touch on it as a board. So it will be up for discussion again next month, and then we'll move it forward for final approval the month after. But we will give it time since it's here on the discussion items as well. So Trustee Nolte and Trustee Sickinga.
Can I make one other note that I totally missed under discussion items? There was supposed to be a broadband discussion. Do you want me just to bring that up when it comes to additional board concerns?
Yeah, because we didn't adjust the,
I forgot.
and I think you, was it in
It's
your,
in my
it's in your
update.
report?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we get to
Okay.
that section.
Okay, great. Can do that. Okay, so go ahead.
I just wonder, should we wait and write something up next month, like say what this is and then.
All this is all we're doing right now is it's just general discussion. Next month we'll come back with something more written up and a formalized because I think one of our first things is to have to discover if there's true value in it from the interlocal. So mind if I take the lead on this, Karen, for a second? The first part is, last month we held an interlocal meeting here at Town Hall where we had Hamburg, Putnam, Linden Township, Dexter Township, some of the Portage Lake people, Half Moon Lake Association, some representatives were there, and some other members from the Huron River Water Council. And we've talked about starting an interlocal group under the umbrella of Huron River Water Council. And this was our first go at meeting, and we had about 20 people here. And it was really just to hear the stories and see if there's value in doing this. And after 2 hours, it was really, everybody concluded that there was value in doing it. And the Huron River Water council is going off and to try to give it some formation, and we'll come back at the end of the summer and we'll regroup people with a more definitive agenda and how we'd like to move forward. So that's kind of an interlocal committee type thing that we're talking about. It's not Dexter Township leading it. We act as a member of that. The Waterway Committee is what Karen and I were talking about, would work under that, where we would put representatives from all our waterways, the rivers and all our lakes, and start discussing how to help educate residents on water issues, and how to get all the lakes on the same page. I personally do testing on Half Moon Lake and on Bruin Lake, which is not in our township, but and Silver Lake. And when we were at the Silver Lake HOA meeting, it comes to find out Silver Lake is a healthier lake than Half Moon Lake. So I think there's a lot to be learned from all the lakes if we can share information. Ultimately, we would like to get a web page, an extra page on our website to store lake testing information. North Lake has been testing for 25 years, and as the elders in North Lake is processing this right now, I ran into people this weekend that the same people have been working on it for 20 years. Where does that information go if they leave? So it'd be really nice if the township was the library of all the lake information. So as the associations change, there's still a central depository of information. So what do you have to add, Karen?
I met with Gretchen Driscoll, who's our water commissioner.
Yeah.
She's also very interested in this. She has some resources potentially to help staffing and so
Right.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can write, but first we have to see the lake associations that I've talked to. They are interested. Do we know the formation of it yet? No. Do we know all the value of it? No, but it's putting some people together to start sharing information to protect all our waterways and take care of our invasive species and educate our populations. And that's a lot of it is education.
Great. Is there any questions? Further discussion? All right, we'll have this on a future agenda as well. Trustee Sickinga, the fire ordinance.
Okay, so if you guys look at the back of the supplemental materials, there's this executive summary, fire protection ordinance and code adoption. This, and I'm sorry, this did not get into the regular package, but this is the write-up that Chief Armstrong provided to Daphne to explain the benefits of having a fire ordinance in place. It's been in our interlocal agreement since I think the inception that all three participating entities would have a fire ordinance. But only City of Dexter has done so. So in response to this, the Daphne board passed a resolution or a motion to that each of the that of support for each of the participating entities to adopt these codes. And we as a board have tried as much as we can to kind of hang our hats on external policies so that we don't have to do the work of we can rely on external experts and we don't have to do the work of updating and keeping our ordinances and so on up to date. And I believe that, I mean, it's not, I don't believe it, but fire ordinances are the reason why our fire department is primarily responding to EMS calls and not to fire calls now. So because standards for construction, for fire prevention are so much better now than they were 100 years ago. And I'm just going to tell a little story, which is that I was living in San Francisco in 1989 during the Loma Prieta earthquake when the Bay Bridge collapsed and Candlestick Park, and all that. And if you guys remember, the last big earthquake caused the San Francisco fire, and that was in the 19-teens. And there was virtually no fire damage, and it's because of fire ordinances. And so we want to do this to comply with our interlocal agreement and to ensure that future construction is as good as it can be to prevent fire danger. And so my question for you guys is, what do you need to feel comfortable approving the adoption of these codes as our fire code. And I want to also say that a lot of it is not relevant to us. You know, there's stuff in there, helicopter pads come up all the time. We don't have helicopter pads. There's a whole section on helicopter pads, but all that means is anything that's not relevant is not relevant. It doesn't go into effect. So I don't feel like we need to take out everything that's irrelevant, because if somebody does build a helicopter pad tomorrow, then then it's in place and we know what to do. And, and if they never do, then we just don't regard it.
Well, wouldn't they have to run something like that, a helicopter pad past the planning commission?
Yeah, well, I don't know, but this gives Fletcher, it's just like any other, it's like our engineering standards and whatever. It just
Right.
gives more structure and more tools for the planning department to respond to it's primarily new construction or major reconstruction.
Trustee Nolte.
Is there a percentage of townships or municipalities that have adopted this versus that have not? Do we know, is this the going trend? Are we behind the times of not adopting this, or?
I think most municipalities and counties,
Have
have them.
adopted.
I don't know about townships.
I think the difference here slightly is that many of those places may have their own sort of fire code. Tying ours directly to fire ordinance, tying ours directly to the fire code. I think if I can add to what Karen was saying, I think part of this is this document is thousands of pages long.
Yeah.
And so if we're going to adopt something by reference, there was some discussion at Daphne. One community felt like they had to read the entire thing, which is fine. That's great, but we want to give you time if that's the case, but we're letting you know that the intent is to adopt by reference, essentially, that code. I will say I reached out to at Karen's suggestion, I reached out to OHM as well as Carlisle Wortman, and have received some comments. So I'll make sure as we're coming forward with the final documents that you all receive that as well. There are some things about, for example, that we may want to exclude. The biggest example I can think of is there's a requirement around sprinklers within new developments, and some of the way it could read would be that would be required in houses. And I think, the way that I can't remember if it was Megan or the folks from OHM, but that sprinklers save structures. The fire code is meant to save people. And so I think there's different pieces of that. And I probably just butchered the exact thing that she said, but I will make sure that that's included so that you all have that, because there are some things that we may want to consider that may not directly apply, that are not things like helicopter pads, but that may have real impact on people's everyday life or building of new properties.
Are there two questions? Do they have a code around burning brush? I mean, are there changes and also if there are changes that someone who has a business or anything should know about, how will they be informed?
Yeah, I think those are all the things that we need to.
The education planned around it?
I mean, just like any ordinance, we would need to notify folks
And nobody's
of the
gonna read a
adoption.
1,000-page document to try to find out if they can burn brush.
Correct. So we'll need to make sure that's.
Didn't they say it's already illegal, but everybody does it anyway,
I don't think it's illegal.
It's
I thought you're supposed to get permission.
yeah, it's regulated to certain, if it is outside of a fire pit versus inside, you're supposed to let the fire department know. They regulate it in some way, but it's not formalized. I think that's actually part of the intent is it could be different in Dexter or Webster or Dexter Township, and Daphne has to respond to that. That's why part of the reason for asking everyone to adopt this is to try to get us all into as close of alignment as possible around these policies so that if they're responding to a fire in Dexter or an issue in Dexter, that, you know, they're able to do that in the same way in Dexter Township or Webster Township to give more clarity for the department.
I was wondering, so specifically wondering, do you want us to get copies of the fire codes so that people can come in and look at them if they want? And should we have the fire chief come so that we can ask these kinds of questions and he can answer them?
I
for
think
us?
I know I went to something not so long, probably it was a while ago now, a couple of years ago, where the fire chief was talking about wanting to adopt this.
Yeah.
Codes.
Yeah.
He
And
came to one of,
stated it was very complex, and I do think we need to ask questions about
Yep.
it. Yeah, I'd like to be better informed.
But it's not even just, so what concerns me, if I'm reading this correctly, in 3 paragraphs from the bottom, these codes do not apply to existing owner-occupied single-family homes unless those homes are used for a specific non-residential purpose. So I know 3 daycares, one of them is a little school, preschool-ish. So this could be
Or
a
business use of
really
homes.
extreme financial hardship. Now, all of a sudden, you're saying you've got to rip open your building and install a sprinkler system. So am I reading that correctly, where if it is,
where are you?
On
Here.
the second to last, that's what I'm concerned about too, is that, you know, the shock of somebody having to do something, update
Absolutely.
something that is, you know,
Yeah, we should know all that.
fixing something
maybe-
that's not
Well,
broken.
then on the
people-
other
the
hand, we
community
should-
should be made aware to attend, so they have an understanding as well.
Sure. So we'll work with, on getting more information and having the chief or someone else from Daphne here to be able to answer questions. Any other discussion or questions?
Well, maybe we should also have like a public hearing.
All right, hearing none, I'm gonna lump, letters C and D, personnel policy changes and FOIA policy changes together slightly, in saying that they're in the packet. The changes are highlighted on the personnel policy. The FOIA policy, you'll see some areas are highlighted for major changes. The clerk and I have been talking about this for quite a while. Our FOIA policies have been relatively outdated on our website. And so this is an update using the forms that are provided by the MTA. So please review those. And if you have any questions or changes, please make sure that you reach out to myself or the clerk about the FOIA policy. If any changes to the personnel policy or questions, please reach out to myself or our office administrator, Sam Edwards. And then I want to pause and give Michelle or Sam, if there's anything that I missed, give them a chance to talk about those issues as well.
No, I'm just happy that it's been brought up. This month, didn't have any FOIAs, which wasn't nice. But the FOIAs that have been coming to the clerk's office within the last year, they have been definitely more detailed, needing the assistance of our attorneys, our planners. So those costs really do get expensive. So thank you Supervisor Scott for bringing this, as well as all the forms. They're fantastic. So now I'm able to reach out directly to the individual requesting a FOIA, letting them know that there will be charges and give them the heads up on what those charges should and probably would be.
Sounds good. Any other discussion or questions? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the complaint information protocol. Trustee Abbott.
Okay. Having served on the short-term rentals, the resounding theme is that the reason there was only one complaint that set off the whole situation where we had to have a committee for short-term rentals was that people are afraid to complain. And I really didn't give it much thought, but then we had a meeting in May and a complainant's name and address was spoken out loud in a live stream meeting. I just want us to have,
Here in this meeting.
yeah,
Here too, okay.
yes, I'm sorry,
That's
in,
okay.
in a board of trustee meeting.
Mhm.
And I would really like it if we had something that was concrete, something that survived this board. I know that a complainant's name and address is a Freedom of Information Act, but I want people to have to file to get that information. I think that it creates a list of who obtained that information in the event that something did happen. But I think that then, then there's no reason for people to say, well, I can't complain. At our planning commission meeting, we had a lady up here telling us the story of a woman who lives by herself and is terrified to complain. And the story was so moving that the person relaying the story to us is crying. And so I don't like that for our residents. I want them to have protection. And I know that the previous supervisor had a policy, but it's cannot seem to find it anywhere where it survives that supervisor's term. And so I would like it if we just created something that made it rock solid.
Questions or discussion? All right. Hearing none, we'll move into the next.
Can I just say one thing,
Oh.
which is maybe the policy, if you guys, I don't know who's gonna craft this policy, but maybe it should extend beyond complainants to, because I know we have a practice now of not publishing the call data for fire and, other, we've talked about this with respect to some other things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
job applicants,
Yeah.
and things, so maybe we
Should be
just.
more universal.
Maybe we just
Okay.
have a universal policy about not pushing information, not pushing biometric information
Right.
out about people, acknowledging that some of it is foiable, but that we won't publish it unless
Correct.
it's requested, and not just for complainants.
Yeah, I think that's great.
And community members can always come in and remain anonymous if they have a complaint. They don't have, unfortunately, there was an instance and it was put into the board packet, which was really unfortunate. But I've dealt with many of them that have came in and they don't want their neighbors to know, or they know something and they're concerned.
Well, and I spoke with the lady that, I mean, she wasn't sobbing, but you could tell it was really breaking her heart to share this widow's story with us. And so I did talk to her afterwards and explain to her how a complaint could be filed without any identifiable information. But at the same time, I think it is important that we consider the times we're living in.
Alicia, I think it would be great if you could give us either a written report or a discussion about the short-term rental, what you did, what you decided, so that we'll be prepared if it comes, so we know,
Oh,
you know.
yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll move into question and answer staff and Dexter Township Committee reports. I know that our office administrator is here. Does anyone have any questions about the office administrator report? All right. Any questions about I guess we'll just let everyone, if you have something from reports that you would like to question. Trustee Nolte.
I forgot to put it on discussion item, sorry. In my report, let's go back to broadband. Trying to wrap up this 5-year project. It's going into its 5th year now. I mean, we started it right when we came into office in 2020, working under the county broadband task force. We have our 2 remaining roads. We funded and paid for Jeanette Drive. And I just got notification this morning that they are sending out letters to those residents to say, please contact us for hookup. What happened is MEC, the big ice storm up north where there's great devastation. All the cable companies went up there to rebuild and reconnect after that massive ice storm. So it all went on hold for the last couple of months. They're coming back. Jeanette Drive should be hooked up as soon as DTE releases their permit and they're already soliciting the connection. So that one is pretty much to a closure. And then we have this little Tanglewood Trail. And Tanglewood Trail, the county manager and I, we kind of estimated from all our others. We estimated wrong, it appears, because they are coming into this land aerial. They're not digging cable. They're coming in over the wires because of where it is. In the past year, we've been trying to get this hooked up, but some farmers were stopping us from crossing their property. A lot of issues with this. And the whole thing is, poor little Tanglewood Drive was really left out of the original bid on the county and state area. We don't know why. It was just not in its formations. So we have from our funding in February that I requested, we have 17.5 to do that. MEC came in with a bid of over $100,000 to lay out this little bit, and Charter came in with 36,000. And most of that is due to their pole ready because they're coming in on an aerial methodology. So we are short 17,500. So I'm requesting funding, that additional funding, to bring the broadband project to closure. And finishing these two streets will take this project off our table. That's where I am. Is there
I
any
mean,
questions on it?
do we need to, I mean, we're budgeted in that line for more than the 36,000. Can't you just do it out of the already authorized budget?
We definitely can, but this is kind of a variation of that, so I want to make sure that the board, since it's a lot of money. I just want to make sure that it's budgeted. There's no, we won't have to
Yeah,
do any kind of budget
it's an extra
amendment. It'll just be
17.5.
approval to do it.
The other thing, if we don't, so what's happened and what's slowing it down for these two roads is these are two very small projects in the scope of Charter and MEC. They've moved on to Bridgewater. They've moved on to other townships where they're doing massive runs. And these are little cleanup things. And once they leave, it's very hard to get them back.
So there's urgency to do this. You don't want to wait.
Well,
till next month?
I'd prefer if we could get it done because, yeah, they're over there connecting on McKinley now. I know MEC's connecting, and Charter, Maryland did commit to me that they will move on it. And if we don't fund it, then these residents are left until 27 or 28 if they qualify for BEAD funding, which is the next internet funding out of the government if BEAD happens. And then they have to go through the funding, then it's at least a year or 2 years to actually enact.
But I
So-
want to be super clear. This is not funding to the residents. This
No.
is just funding for the basic infrastructure that distributes.
Correct. They will have to pay for their final hookups.
Yeah,
This gets the
just like
cable
every-
down the aerial lines, and then the residents have to pay to hook to those poles.
So I'll make a motion to authorize a $36,000 expense.
Oh,
Well, it's
we're-
17.5.
I guess if the board,
Oh.
we typically don't do business in the report section. This would be the first.
But it sounds like there's urgency for it, right? Because there's a fear that they'll go away and the
I mean,
price.
if
will
we
go
can
up.
get it done, I'd get it done, but I understand if we wanna wait.
Is there, I guess I misunderstood because I thought when we talked about this, we said we could wait till next month. We could put it in a report this month and then,
We can, what do you want me to do? You want me, it's gonna be the same as this next month, unless you want me to get an invoice.
no, we can, I mean, we can vote on it next month to approve, to authorize. We typically are trying not to, I mean, we try to talk about things more than one, at least more than once. And I know we've talked about broadband enough that I'd feel comfortable doing it, at the next meeting. I don't like to, especially something with that large amount of money. I don't really want to spring that on the board at the last minute, unless, I mean, if everyone else feels like they want to do that, then I won't stand in the way. We just don't typically take business from the report section since we've already moved past action items.
Fair.
Yeah, I understand. I thought you guys were saying that it had to be done urgently. To reserve I thought Karen just said that they're gonna go away.
They could. They could. Yeah, Charter's coming back to do this one road. I can go either way. It'd be nice to get it off the books, just to be done with broadband, but
wonder if we
at the
should-
same time, I understand.
I wonder if we should make an exception to our, and just note it as an exception to our kind of 3-point touch point, you know, because of the urgency of it. And I think there are some things that it's just too long. 3 months is a long time if we're, you know, having 2 months of discussion to make decisions. I mean, I think that for a lot of things, it's a good idea and, you know, for certain things, yeah.
Isn't this the road where people came to the
Mhm.
public hearing and spoke about how
Yeah,
one
they were
lady
so
was on her
sad.
third job because she didn't have internet
Yeah.
in her home? And there were several people who spoke about how they worked, they needed to be able to work from home, but couldn't. And so I would be fine with making an exception because of the urgency that these are people's, you know, livelihoods that are relying on us to get this done.
All right, so there was a motion by trustee Sickinga to approve, what was the amount?
17.5.
But
It's a
Karen-
total of 36.
Yeah, I think we should go with
Yeah.
the total.
for the
Well,
people.
we did already, in that meeting, we already approved the other amount.
Yeah,
So we did approve money to do this. This is over and above the amount that we had approved already.
So the original
Wait a minute.
amount that was approved was
17.
17.5, so we need
yeah.
18.
Well, it was really 29.5.
29.5, but it was two,
We
that was,
spent 12,000 to do Jeanette Drive. That's already been paid. So we have 17.5. We need 36.
So that's 18.
That's 18.5 we need.
So I'll make a motion to
Yeah, we
approve an
need
additional
18.5.
18.5 to complete the broadband project
is there a
Tanglewood.
second?
on Tanglewood.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by trustee Sickinga, seconded by trustee Abbott. To approve an additional 18.5 expenditure on broadband, and that is from the capital fund
Communication. I put in here the cellular, but that's.
cellular,
it's typed.
cellular connectivity, I believe is the line item.
Thought it
Yeah.
was communication, something.
All right. Since it's dealing with money, we'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Nolte,
Yes,
trustee Abbott,
Yes.
treasurer Metz,
Yes.
clerk Stambouli,
Yes.
trustee Sanders.
Yes.
Trustee Sickinga,
Yes.
supervisor Scott, yes. So the motion carries. All right, other reports, I wanted to highlight as well, Fletcher is also here, if anyone has any questions, for his report.
can we get one other thing on single hauler, why it's in my report?
Sure.
That we did, there's a postcard going out to all the residents, if everybody knows that, for the July 10th meeting here. We're holding another meeting. So it's just getting mailed because we can't hit everybody on our emails and everything. So we're hoping for a pretty good turnout July 10th. And that's gone, right, Sam? That's. Oh, good, good.
Anything else for reports?
Well, on single hauler, we hope we'll be coming to the board with the contract in July. So we didn't put it as a discussion item this month because we devoted a significant amount of the last meeting to this. You know, so
It's
we'll
really,
be asking for a decision in July, but knowing that we might.
we'll be asking for a decision in July to move forward with waste management and then maybe August we canceled our August meeting for contract. We hope to have a rough draft contract this Friday to get to our legal to start perusing and for us to do a lot of cleanup and then
We do have 2 August meetings scheduled. The one is just going to be the public hearing for short-term rentals, but if we have other timely
add to it.
business that we have to do, we can add to it. I don't want to increase I expect that meeting will be pretty long already. So I don't want to add a bunch but things like approval of the minutes or check disbursements, those kinds of things that are standard, we'll definitely have on that agenda.
I just want to say that I did attend the Western Washtenaw Advisory Committee in Chelsea. And it was very recently and I didn't have time to write anything up, but and I'm still kind of getting my feet wet and understanding, you know, figuring out who's who there and understanding what the issues are. This one was devoted to transportation. They're doing a big transportation study and survey in Chelsea area around the needs around transportation and its impacts on development, et cetera. So, and I'm just kind of learning the players and what the issues are. So I will be reporting eventually.
Great.
Nice. Hmm. I'm glad you're going to that.
All right, I think, anybody else? All right, we're on to our next call for public comment on non-agenda items. Are there any members of the public wishing to address the board? All right. Hearing none, we'll move into other issues, comments, or concerns of board members and staff. Trustee Nolte,
None at this.
trustee Abbott, treasurer Metz, clerk Stambuelis.
I have a question while we were on the topic of closing the books on all of our Township initiatives. Is there like an ETA from the WCRC when Madden Road might be completed?
I mean, you guys would know that now because I'm not the one that's getting the communication. You guys are doing the contract with the, but I
It's
mean,
been-
but in general, they say that this road schedule, they don't publish it very far in advance and because they say that it's so weather dependent, so they don't want to be held to a specific date in advance. So it's really hard to get them to nail them down. But there is a website that, you know, a Dexter Township, I mean, there is a website about current construction and you can kind of monitor it, but you can talk to them and ask them, but they probably won't tell you.
No, and I get all of all the information almost daily of the roads and the location. I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, I tried to get them to like tell us what their queue is, you know, like just tell us what order you're doing it in and then,
just an idea.
but
That
they-
would be a commitment.
well, they won't do that. Yeah, so I haven't had success, but it's a great question. I wish I knew.
The broadband will be in completion
Mm-hmm.
and our roads will be in.
Oh, yeah, it would
Which
be
would be
nice to be
nice.
able to say we did all that by the strategic planning.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Trustee Sanders?
No.
Trustee Sickinga? No. The only thing that I have is we are aware, I just want to make sure that folks know, the closure at Silver Lake, that the DNR, I have received several complaints about the parking along the side of the road. We have informed the sheriff's office, especially this weekend when it's supposed to be 100 degrees, they will be increasing patrols in the area. And we're exploring the possibility with the road commission around potentially some temporary no parking signs in very specific areas where it's very dangerous, where people are crossing the road, especially around the 4th of July holiday. So we've started those discussions. And I just want to make sure that I mention it here as well. The other thing to mention with our police services is Lieutenant Hunt is retiring this week, Friday, I think Friday is his last day. So the new lieutenant covering this area is Lieutenant Kratzenberg, and he will be joining us at a future board meeting to introduce himself. And we will eventually have a new lieutenant covering our area. But that has been postponed for now. So once we know more information about that, I'll let everyone know. Any other board members or staff with issues, comments, or concerns? All right, hearing none, and with no further business before the board, the meeting is adjourned at 7:59 p.m.
Good job.
A lot of efforts. Yeah.
So your take on.
Everything you can.